You know, here's the thing. When James isn't here, no one takes this seriously. They just lollygag around. That's what's happening. It's supposed to start at 3. I don't know what time it is. Is it 4? Anyway, welcome to the Midas Letter. I'm Howard. This is Ed. You know, I was here a few weeks ago. Howard Glassman, Humble Howard from the Humble and Fred Show. You know, worldwide domination. But I'm happy to be here talking weed stocks with Ed.
Domination or damnation?
With Ed.
Milewski.
I love Ed.
Or Ed Milewski.
I've missed you. Do you see how we, like when I saw you in the office a few hours ago?
Yeah.
We sort of locked eyes on one another and we're like, hey, remember me? And you're like, yeah, vaguely. Because you got a lot on your mind. You have a lot going on in a day.
Well, you know. Yeah, I think the older you get, you know, my mind's always racing around.
Yeah.
You know, that's just my personality. I'm not a guy that focuses.
No.
I'm all over the place.
Me too.
I think, yeah, I'd say we are, yeah.
I'm barely paying attention now. I'm trying to think about.
Yeah. You know, you're a golfer, right?
I do.
Yeah, so we were playing golf, and my buddy crushes one down the 12th hole at the London Hunting Country Club.
Nice.
And he's got like about 90 yards in, and he takes out his pitching wedge. This is a few years ago.
Yeah.
And he actually he sticks the club about 4 inches into the turf, and the ball moves about a foot. And I said, what were you thinking about when you were hitting that shot? He said, what was the luncheon special? He was thinking about the luncheon special when he got back to the club.
I love that.
It's hilarious, right? And he likes to eat. This guy liked to eat, okay? So he's sitting there, sticks the club right into the ground. Anyway.
He was thinking about lunch.
He's thinking about lunch.
I also host, beside the Humble and Fred Show, I also host a golf podcast. May I tell you, it's called Swing Thoughts. And there's a lot about the mental side. And the whole show I do is about the mental side of the game. And like being an investor, watch me tie it in here, Ed. Like being an investor, golf is a game of process goals, not results goals. And people that are result-oriented in golf generally have a crappy time because as soon as they don't get the result they want, they bail, they get emotional. Starting to see the analogy? Like investing, you know, you have to be process-oriented.
Yeah.
Let the outcomes take care of themselves. Don't get emotional. Don't make decisions based on outcome because if you listen, I learned a lot from you last time that, you know, you've got to follow it, you've got to be invested, but you've also got to be able to take yourself out emotionally from time to time.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to become the watcher, as they say in philosophy, right? You have to back out of it and look at it for what it really is.
I like that. You know, there's something I'm reading recently. I'm not sure if we talked about it last time about the idea that the prover proves and the thinker thinks. So if you think a certain way, whether it's in golf, investing, or in life, you will prove it. So if if you go out about it in a negative way, then what happens is your brain will find proof for your negative attitude.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this is anything to do with how you go about your investment, Midas Letter nerds, and thanks for watching us here, and thanks to James for letting me sit in. James is in LA. There's all kinds of stuff going on in terms of how the Midas Letter may be produced going forward.
Excuse me.
But the point is, good to have you guys all here. We have a great show coming up for you. Ed's going to be hanging around with me, of course. Ben as well. But here's what's coming up on today's show. We're going to get to the news pretty shortly. And then, in a few minutes' time, the CEO of Delta 9 Cannabis, John Arbuthnot. Is that even close? Don't know. I'm going to find out, though. Later on, Geert Kersten, the CEO of CEL-SCI Corp, or CEL-SCI Corp. CEL-SCI. As well, we're going to speak to a semi-regular on the show from CB1 Capital, Todd Harrison. Ed's got some charts and some things he's going to be talking about as the market closes. And then the Midas Letter lead financial writer, Benjamin A. Smith, not to be confused with the other Benjamin Smiths. He'll be here talking about some stuff at the end of the show. Before we get to the news, the markets are sucking. Ed?
Well, we've had some interesting things happen in the last little while. Like one of the big things that's happening is that rates are dropping quickly. Now, whenever rates drop quickly, people are nervous. Like especially like 10-year rates. Like the German 10-year rate went negative. Well, what does that mean? That means if you invest for 10 years, you're going to get less money back than you put in. Duh.
That doesn't sound like a great deal.
Hey, how do you like this deal? Well, some people, institutions, can only invest in government securities.
Okay.
So they may be mandated by regulation.
Who wants that deal?
Well,
nobody.
Look. Why have rates? What? 4 months ago, the Fed guy said we're going to raise rates, probably raise them again, and all of a sudden, they hit a wall.
Yeah.
And 3 months later, he's saying, "Oh, we don't think we're going to raise rates this year at all." There's a total about face. Something changed in the last few months, and things are looking a little.
See, but you're saying there's some nervousness in this market right now because of some of the longer-term investments.
Look at Boeing had some issues. That was a different kind of thing, but a lot of these companies have warned. Amazon's warned. Apple has warned. Warned. And when I say warned, they're saying we don't see it as rosy as it was looking. What's happening? Maybe this debt thing has stretched the world to the point of where it has to get contracted a bit.
Well, not to get too political, but when the president, the Orange Julius, 45, the Orange Man, when he gave that tax break a year or so ago, the markets took off. But I think the longer that continues to show that it was only beneficial to certain segments of the marketplace, in the longer term, it's extra debt, and maybe some of this pressure is coming from the massive debt that's going to leave the U.S. of A.
Do you know that there's approximately $25 trillion of debt now, government debt, I guess, of which 10 trillion,
Okay.
is earning negative interest.
That's not good.
That's suggestive of contraction. Mm-hmm. And what does contraction? Nobody likes contraction. Although if you don't owe money and everything's paid for and you got a good income, contraction's good because you don't have to wait anymore to get into a nice restaurant.
Right. So that's your world.
No.
That's great. So
or hotels. There's lots of hotels to get into.
Forget poor people. Ed's like, hey, there's no lineup at Mercado or wherever he goes.
Yeah, Mercado, $5 drinks.
Is it Mercado?
Mercado, yeah.
Okay, that's Ed's place.
Anyway, look,
no, I hear you.
We're talking.
We're just shooting. We're shooting a breeze.
Something's changed.
Yes.
This runaway freight train that was our bull market for the last 9 years looks like it's hit a bit of a.
Great, Ed.
Okay.
Great. Okay. Listen, we got lots more to come. It's great to have you along. The Midas Letter is live for this Wednesday, March 27th. And now with the news, here's Ricky Gerwitz.
Here are the headlines moving markets today. Canopy Growth Corporation has announced the addition of Houseplant, a new brand of Canadian cannabis founded by Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg. Under the terms of the partnership, Houseplant will lean on the production and distribution capabilities of Canopy Growth and its licensed subsidiaries to ensure the supply of Houseplant flower, soft gel, and pre-rolled formats are rolled out in Canada over the coming months. Through a minority ownership in the new business venture, Canopy Growth will help Houseplant scale quickly and support Houseplant's long-term success. Origin House announced that the company's California distribution division, Continuum, has entered into a distribution agreement with Humboldt Sun Growers Guild to be the exclusive distributor of Papa's herb-branded products in California. James E. Wagner Cultivation Corporation announced today that it has made a drawdown of over 500,000 Canadian dollars under the loan agreement dated February 20th, 2019 with Ball Construction Limited. The drawdown will be used to pay an invoice issued by the lender in respect of services and materials provided for the construction currently underway at JWCA's second facility located in Kitchener, Ontario. MediPharm Labs Corp has announced that it will release its fourth quarter and full year financial results ending on December 31st, 2018, before markets open on Wednesday, April 3rd, 2019. Tetra Bio-Pharma Inc. announced it is ready to submit its PPP-001 cannabinoid-derived drug as a herbal medicinal product to the European Medicines Agency. WeedMD Inc. has applied for an amendment to its Strathroy license to expand beyond its existing cultivation. The company is looking to increase its current operation with a 25-acre, large-scale, low-cost outdoor cannabis grow with the capacity to expand to up to 50 acres. WeedMD confirms it has secured the support of the municipality of Strathroy Caradoc for its planned outdoor grow, expected to be completed in 2 phases. Pending Health Canada approval, the outdoor grow is expected to increase WeedMD's total production footprint to upwards of 2.7 million square feet, with a potential to yield over 100,000 kilograms of cannabis in 2020, together with greenhouse cultivation. Live Well Canada Inc. announced that it has closed a private placement of senior secured convertible notes with institutional investors for total aggregate gross proceeds of $15 million US. Agent fees and legal expenses are expected to cost $2.1 million. The total aggregate gross proceeds include the previously announced $3 million bridge financing, as well as an additional $12 million note. The company also closed a private placement of equity units with retail investors for aggregate gross proceeds of 1.7 million Canadian dollars, before agent fees and legal expenses of approximately $284,000. The total net proceeds from these 2 capital raises will primarily be used to optimize and enhance production at the Eureka, Montana extraction facility, with the balance of the funds being used to begin retrofitting the Las Cruces, New Mexico facility. And that's your news for today.
Right on, right on, right on. There's Ricky with the news. It's good to be back. Apparently, I call it the Midas Letter. It's just Midas Letter. So I apologize.
Yeah. And you know,
Yeah.
it used to be called the Facebook, and then they said drop the.
Wait a second.
Facebook.
They dropped it?
Yeah, it used to be called the Facebook.
Were they really?
They did.
Is it?
That was in the movie.
No, I saw it.
Yeah.
Do they still call it the Twitter? Or is it back to just Twitter now?
Well, it depends what you're doing.
What about the texting?
Do you do the texting?
Do you do the texting?
Howard apparently doesn't do the texting with me.
Oh, no, I will text you.
Okay.
Interesting story, Canopy Growth. And I saw this story. I've got it. It's funny because I saw this this morning on CNBC. And their headline, Seth Rogen launches weed company to make it easier for people to learn to love cannabis.
Jesus.
That's the headline. And I saw that, I'm like, oh, I think we've learned to love cannabis. But it's interesting that it's a Canopy Growth play under the terms of the partnership as...
So he's having a relationship with Canopy Growth.
Well, yeah, they're Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg. And Evan Goldberg, if you don't know, because you're on the internet and not going to movies, Evan Goldberg he co-wrote a bunch of movies with Seth Rogen, but he and Seth went to school together. They've been friends since they were kids. I think the movies that I know Evan wrote or co-wrote was The End, Pineapple Express, Superbad. But it's interesting that Canopy has come to Seth Rogen to be sort of the face of weed in Canada. Here's a little scene from...
That's Seth right there, isn't it?
That's right there. It's Seth Rogen.
He's a BC guy, right?
He is. Their company's Houseplant. They're going to ensure the supply of Houseplant flower, soft gel, and pre-rolled formats as that becomes legal across the country. Interesting, though. I think, here's what I wanted to run by you. I think what we're going to see more and more as it becomes, well, different stages of legality, I think we're going to see more and more celebrities being the face of weed companies. I mean, Seth Rogen's a natural because of his persona.
Yeah, he's a pot user, isn't he?
He's a stoner, is what we call him in the business.
He likes the pot.
He likes the he likes the texting, and he likes the...
he likes the texture.
He likes the texture, exactly.
Well, look at now. Do you know the name? The big hedge fund guy in the U.S.
This is my favorite segment called "Is Ed going to remember this?"
Is Ed going to remember this? Yeah, that's good. Give me some more pot. Anyway, this group here in Canada hired this guy, gave him 20 million options.
Wow.
20 million options. This guy is world-renowned investor.
Okay.
And his job is to come on board and help promote, basically, and I can't think of his name, but it was Aurora Cannabis. Aurora Cannabis.
Interesting. So this guy's like...
yeah, so he got 20 million up. Nelson Peltz. Nelson Peltz.
Is it I have a question.
P-E-L-Z.
Pelz.
Peltz.
Nelson Pelz.
But pronounced Peltz, I believe.
Okay. Well...
And he's like he's a billionaire, I believe. Mm-hmm. Which is not such a big deal anymore.
Isn't it?
Not like it used to be.
Like if you... Yeah, that's right, Ed. A billion ain't what it used to be. Yeah. What I guess I'm trying to say, and I think this Seth Rogen deal, it's being reported by all the major financial reporters, and CNBC had it this morning at like 8 something. I think you're going to see a lot more guys like this Pelz finding, what would call them like the equivalent of pot influencers. And now, does this help cannabis? I'm sorry, does this help Canopy Growth? Is this going to move their stock?
Well, we're going to look at some of the big ones a little later.
When we get to our chart time.
Yes, chart time.
Chart time. All right. All right. Coming up next, the CEO of Delta 9 will be joining me via Skype. But first, check this out.
Delta 9 Cannabis Inc. is a vertically integrated cannabis company based in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Delta 9's wholly owned subsidiary, Delta 9 Biotech Inc., is a licensed producer of medical and recreational cannabis and operates an 80,000 square foot production facility. Delta 9 owns and operates a chain of retail stores under the Delta 9 Cannabis Store brand. Delta 9 intends to have 20 retail stores in operation in Manitoba by 2021. The company has an agreement to supply 2.1 million grams annually to the Manitoba government, in addition to supply agreements with Auxly Cannabis and Canopy Growth. Delta 9's shares trade on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol NINE.
It's a pleasure to welcome the CEO of Delta 9 Cannabis Inc. And I just want to make sure, John, because I am a professional, Arbuthnot. Is that close enough? I would be great if I could hear John. That'd be cool.
We can't hear John.
That's all right. John, while we're trying to get your audio working.
Is that a little better?
There we go.
There.
Hi, John.
Perfect.
How are you, man?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm okay. Arbuthnot.
Close enough.
Let's talk about some of the things that have been happening recently with the company. You announced that the Saskatchewan Liquor and Gaming Authority has authorized you guys to supply cannabis directly to the province's retail and wholesale markets. Let's talk a little bit about that deal in Saskatchewan. What's that going to mean for you? What's that going to mean for the company?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of Delta 9's rollout for the initial stages of legalization was focused on our home province here in Manitoba. A lot of the idea from a distribution standpoint was around market share and market saturation. We were certainly able, I think, to see the early success in that model here in Manitoba, where we enjoy relatively higher market share from both a wholesale and a retail standpoint. Leveraging the success, I think, of that early take on the market, we're now pushing west. Saskatchewan's the next stop for us. I think, real benefit of that market is we get to sell direct to the retailers in the province, and we're now in a position to be making shipments to retailers across the province of Saskatchewan. As we start to see success in that format as we expand west, we'll ultimately look to participate in all markets across Canada.
It's interesting, the idea that you guys will be shipping directly to retailers. And the retail model is different across the country. Just remind me, what are the rules in terms of a retail space in Manitoba and Saskatchewan, and how does that benefit your company?
Yeah, so slightly different province over province, but in Manitoba, we are one of 4 exclusive licensed retailers. We have 4 pre-allocated licenses to operate retail stores here in the province of Manitoba, so we do consider ourselves a vertically integrated cannabis company. In the province of Saskatchewan, slightly different. They had a lottery program that selected, very similar to Ontario, a number of people who would be eligible to open retail stores. There's been a few dozen stores have rolled out across the province of Saskatchewan, and more are coming online all the time. And the provincial model in Manitoba, very similar to other provinces, requires distribution through a provincial distributor. Saskatchewan a little different in allowing for direct-to-retailer sales. So I think a number of benefits in terms of the flexibility there allows us to work direct with the retailer who's actually controlling the messaging to the end consumer. So, obviously the idea here is to get our branded and high-quality products through to the end consumer. I think Saskatchewan's a great platform for that.
Amazing. Let's talk a little bit about your supply agreements with Auxly and Canopy. Seems like that would be a good fit for you.
Yeah, so I mean, on top of the provincial based distribution or distribution into the recreational market and through to the end consumer, we do have a few business arrangements as well. The first is with Auxly Cannabis, where we look to distribute our products to them on a bulk wholesale basis. A lot of these products are going through to then become extract products and work through, I'll call it the Auxly business model of touching the upstream, midstream, and downstream platforms. So we started to make first shipments on that early this year. The collaboration with Canopy, slightly different, but similar from a distribution standpoint. We're distributing direct to Canopy and really leveraging their sales platform across Western Canada.
Ed, do you have any questions for our friend John?
Yeah, just remind the viewers how many shares are outstanding in Delta.
Yeah, for Delta 9 right now, about 85 million shares fully outstanding or issued and outstanding brings our market cap in the area of 140 to 150 million right now. I think, if I were to point to one thing as a part of the Delta 9 story that's really going to have an impact for this year, it's top line revenue growth. We saw Cronos report earnings for Q4 yesterday of around 5.5 million. Delta 9's now released guidance on our Q4 and our year ends, which will be released mid-April, but we're targeting a revenue range of between, I believe it's 5.4 to 6.4 million. So, obviously significant revenues for a company with a market cap of our size, and we'll look to continue to leverage that success moving forward.
What about your partnership with Westleaf in Alberta for a new production facility? All part of the plans coming up?
So actually have been some fairly recent developments on that. We had participated in an early investment round with Westleaf on that facility we were calling Delta West. We announced end of January that we had reached an agreement with Westleaf, who is now publicly traded as well, essentially to sell our interest in that extraction facility in exchange for shares, 5.6 million shares in Westleaf's publicly traded parent company. Frankly, we like the exposure to their retail unit. We like that this kind of diversifies our upside potential as Westleaf begins to execute on all of their business segments.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to before we get on to the next thing, there really is a couple things at play, whether you supply for other companies and you supply direct to retail. I think that's especially here in Ontario, that retail model is going to be the one that I think, and I want to know what you think, in terms of an expansion of growth. Who knows how many? I mean, there's a Tim Hortons on every corner. So who knows how much retail the country will be able to support? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, and I mean, obviously we talk about ourselves as a vertically integrated cannabis company and all the way through to being a retailer here in Manitoba. We now look to expand that out to Saskatchewan, Alberta, and other provinces that will allow for vertically integrated retail. Ontario's been pretty slow, as we all know. Yes. This lottery system has been interesting. I mean, I threw my
let's come back to that lottery system, which is insane. We'll just get back to that. Finish up, John.
Well, interesting was generous, but obviously is a slow approach. I think ultimately we're going to see a little bit more of an open market platform in Ontario. I think it is very exciting for us, the opportunity of getting into the Ontario market on either an ownership or a franchise basis. We're now to a point where, from a retail perspective, we have all of the systems. We have the point of sale, the HR backend to be able to expand very quickly on the retail side. And we see a lot of benefits to controlling the retail, controlling the direct-to-consumer marketing and branding elements, as well getting that live feedback from the consumer on what products are working, what products are selling, what products are not selling. All of that has a tremendous amount of value for us as a production distribution company.
Have you, at Delta 9, have you thought a lot about what that retail experience is going to be. And before we get to that, I think April 1st is the deadline for Ontario, Ed. You have basically those franchises that were awarded in the lottery, as John and I were just saying. You have until April 1st. There's a penalty if you don't open up on the 1st of April, which is so bizarre because there's all these people that would have been easily ready to go, and then the lottery system is like, hey, last week you had a farmer's market at St. James. This week you've got a lottery, you've got a franchise to sell cannabis.
And if you're not ready by May 1st,
is it May 1st?
You lose it.
Oh, I thought it was April 1st.
No, yeah, but you got a month.
Oh, okay.
After that, but after you get to May 1, you're done.
There were so many qualified people that could have had that, including Delta 9. But back to you, John. So is making the retail experience important, like sort of as a demarcation that would your retail experience different than another's? You know what I'm getting at?
Yeah, absolutely. And, just to touch on the Delta 9 take on that, I mean, we wanted to, provide a retail experience that was very similar to walking into any other, big box retailer. We wanted it to be well lit, inviting, with customer service staff that are knowledgeable and passionate about the products that they're selling. I know everyone likes to use the analogy of we're trying to be the Apple store, but realistically, our branding, we've kind of taken the overall Delta 9 brand, we've mashed up with an Apple store, and that's very much what you'll see.
Sweet.
A lot of our storefronts are larger on the square footage side. We tend to lean between 300 and 4,500 square feet, so they are large square footage. We carry the full slate of the ancillary, the value-add products, bongs, vaporizers, things like that. And we tried to provide, the best shopping experience that people can have for purchasing cannabis products, very different than I think some people's experiences with the black market dispensaries in Ontario, BC, and really show a public-looking face for the industry that's very professional, very organized, and very legitimate.
I've had the pleasure, I've been at a few cannabis expos, and I was at one, I think it was either Lyft or Cannabis last year, and I saw a mock-up of a retail space, and I had to laugh because, myself and Ed here are 160 years old between each other. I mean, we've been around a long time, sir.
Most of it's on my side.
Exactly. But when we were younger, you forget about the dispensaries. You used to have to buy weed underneath the gardener. I mean, now you walk into a place that looks like a David's Tees. So when I was at these conferences, I remember saying to a friend of mine, I said, what's coming, whether it's Delta or anyone else, is a retail experience that we, baby boomers, and even older, could never have imagined. I love hearing you talk about it that way because it should be not only demystified, but it should be an experience just like walking into a nice wine store or a place where you want to get information about a certain vintage. Do you not agree?
Yeah, and that's been, the very interesting part from our perspective to see since legalization is people walking into the store and you see their eyes light up. Yeah. They really are blown away with what they're seeing in the retail context. And, again, comparing this to black market where, you've got your guy and on a good day, he's got two products. The cheap stuff and the good stuff. You walk into our store this week, we've got about 30 different varieties of dried cannabis. We've got pre-rolls, we've got oils, we've got gel caps. We have the full spectrum of products that are available. I think we've pushed through some of the early supply issues and are now starting to see a lot more consistency from the market. And you know what, for your average cannabis consumer, I think that's where we're going with it.
Hey, by the way, speaking of what's available at Delta 9, do you sell any live resin or shatter? Asking for a friend.
Not just yet.
And
still looking to see what we're going to see this fall from the feds on the rollout of the expanded extracts. But and you know what, we can't quite ship to your office in Ontario yet, but we're working on that hopefully some point in the future.
Ed, you got a quick question for John before we let him go?
You went public a year and a half ago, roughly, or late 2017. How much money did you raise back then?
So we went public last November. We raised $23 million through a bought deal financing in December 2017. Last year, we raised about another $18.5 million through equity, and we secured a $12 million credit facility through Canadian Western Bank. I believe it's one of the first full-service credit facilities that includes commercial mortgage, drawdown credit facilities, credit cards, really the full slate of financial services.
With revenues ramping up,
which is pretty unique.
With revenues ramping up, you're well funded.
We feel we're well funded for our expansion plans for this calendar year. We've now released our broader expansion plans out into 2022, which includes additional retail stores and ramping up our production capacity to the area of 60,000 kilos a year. So, a lot on the horizon for us moving forward.
Just a couple quick questions, I should say, John, before we let you go. One is an agreement with Nanosphere Health Sciences to provide their nanotechnology delivery system for cannabis across the country. Tell us about that. Then I have a question about, and just stand by. John's about to tell us the age he was when he bought his first LP.
In terms of your Nanosphere question, it's a proprietary platform for us to take a cannabis extract to essentially reduce the particle size for the cannabinoids that are in that extract, and in doing so increase the uptake and increase the efficacy, decrease the overall dosage that's required. Now we're still pretty early stage. The company is in the final throes of getting approval for our own oil-based products for sale. I'm hoping in the next 30 days, pending a Health Canada approval. The Nanosphere products will be a little bit beyond that. But otherwise, and pending some or a successful bid from a regulatory standpoint, we plan to roll those products out in the next few months, first on the medical side of the market. But I think the broader implications with this type of technology are, I can increase the efficacy of a drinkable product and make it so that the uptake is similar to an alcoholic beverage, as opposed to taking 30 minutes to an hour to see the onset from a cannabis edible. So I think there's a lot of utility there. In terms of the age, I admit to being 29 today. I was admittedly 19 years old when I started Delta 9, what seems like decades ago, from a cannabis industry perspective.
So you actually had your LP at age 22, according to our research.
22 was when we actually got the license. I think we raised our first capital when I was 19 or so.
Good for you. Listen, I hope this isn't the last time we talk, because I got to tell you this, the retail model is exciting. The nano dosing model is even more exciting. And when edibles become legal in the fall of this year, I think what you're going to see, and I'm just going to leave you with this thought, companies like yours and others are going to be able to be more specific in the dosing of edibles, tinctures, and health products for people that want to have that. Because right now I think there's a little bit of nervousness around edibles because it's so unpredictable.
Yeah, generally, I think the feedback we're getting from consumers is we're pretty early in terms of the uptake or the adoption curve from consumers.
Yeah.
They're really just trying these initially, but a lot of people, and we actually see that the balanced products, the high CBD products, are the highest in demand. So interesting to see now the consumer demographics that are looking for those types of products. And I think as we expand out these regulations, we start to bring on a whole new slate of consumers that's looking for that optionality around these other products and delivery systems. Obviously, huge implications on the medical side as well.
Well, that's the thing, is I think there's so much growth in this space, not only for investors, but for people that are looking for therapies around getting rid of traditional opioids and pharmaceuticals. John, what a pleasure speaking with you. Thanks for joining me. I hope that wasn't too, filled with nonsense.
No, a pleasure as always, and keep your eyes on Delta 9. Delta 9,
one of my favorite planets in the Star Trek universe. Fantastic. Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John. He said it. He said he was 29 years old.
Well, he said it. He said it seemed like decades.
That's why it was a decade ago.
It was a decade ago.
It was a decade ago.
But not decades.
29.
One decade. Well, this guy's obviously.
Yeah, he's good.
He looks like he looks young. He is young.
Well, that's the thing. I'm glad that he said his age, because when he said, I read he got his first LP at 22. I said, look, he's 22 now. Ed and I were having this discussion about experience, and Ed, you were telling me about the experiences of getting older and how you just, as you get older, you just give less shits.
Like, what's the big deal? Like,
what is the big deal?
Whatever. Somebody dies. Well, somebody's dying every day, right?
Every day.
I hate to be so.
No,
but you know.
Listen, people are dying. Right? People are. Hey, what does Matthew McConaughey say? If you're not busy living, get busy dying, or something.
Yeah. No. Listen, we're all on that road, right? The river of life.
And a lot of times when I was here last time, a few weeks ago, you were telling me I learned a lot about how the markets work. But is there an emotional element to investing?
Oh yeah.
And your experience in this business, man and boy, 40 years.
Well,
does it allow you to step back and be less emotional?
Absolutely. Well, you have to be, or else you're gonna lose your money.
You lose your freaking mind.
And you lose your money. It's like we talked about managing your stack, right?
Being a money manager.
Yeah, you gotta manage your stack. If you're arrogant, the market will level you. The market will take it all. It doesn't care. Doesn't know you. Doesn't care.
Yeah.
It's like in the mining expression: the assets don't know who owns them. So you can be a terrible operator, and you can find a major gold deposit, right?
Yeah.
No. You have to realize that if you're going to trade the market, you have to when you're making money, take the money.
Yeah.
Take the money.
Take it out.
Pay the tax.
I don't know if you guys could see the subtle look on Ed's face, and he's like, "Pay the tax."
Yeah.
Whatever.
We pay the tax. Yeah.
Well, listen, it's interesting. That kid, that's how old I am.
He's a youngster.
29 years old.
But obviously ambitious.
Yeah, and done well.
Yeah.
And have you, I know don't look at it now, but it sounds to me like they are well positioned.
Well, you know what? The thing went public, and I don't know what it went public at, and I've got the chart in front of me, but we can show it later. We can show it now if you want.
Well, here's the thing about his company and why I like what he's talking about in terms of the retail model, because I think there's two things that are going to kickstart this when in Ontario, sorry the rest of Canada, I know you have retail stores and stuff, but it doesn't matter. When they start becoming available at a retail level in Ontario, and that expands, and when they take their product and turn them into medicine. We're going to talk more about that later.
Yeah.
In the meantime, James, as you can tell, is not here today because I am and hanging out with Ed. James in LA preparing to do a live show from there tomorrow from the YouTube studio, the first of many jaunts he plans around the world. Have a look at this. There's the Midas Letter Orchestra, and we're making our way through another show. What a pleasure to welcome back semi-regular. You know him. He's the founding partner of CB1 Capital Management. Todd Harrison, thank you very much for taking some time with us today. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Fantastic. I have a couple things open here, and I want to talk about some of the stuff that's happening in the markets. I know it's been kind of a smelly day, but I love that you've written some books. One of my favorite titles, It Pays to Be an Animal. In business, it pays to be an animal, and in life, it pays to be yourself. What does that mean exactly?
That's what you want to talk about with cannabis stocks taking it on the chin today. I'm happy to talk about it.
Just very quickly, I thought we would warm up with that, and then we would talk about cannabis stocks.
Good. It just means stay true to who you are, stay true to yourself. All you have is your name and your word, and you do the right thing long enough, people will eventually take notice. That's
very interesting. I just wanted to imagine, because here's the thing, Todd. We can get right to cannabis stocks, but I think it's good that people know that you've written some cool books, that one included. So let's talk about some of the stuff. As I mentioned, the market's kind of, in general, not having a great day, and specifically weed stocks are kind of smelling.
Yeah, well, I mean, both the stock market and cannabis stocks writ large have had pretty amazing first quarters. So I don't think some backing and filling should shock anybody.
Right.
I don't think necessarily anything has changed. I don't know from the market, right here, 2,800 on the S&P, as we're taping this, is a bit of an inflection point, but you also have quarter end in a couple of days, so that's certainly coloring the price action. But with regards to cannabis, listen, if you find the right names, you got to use price to your advantage, and days like this let you, backfill into some names that maybe have gotten away from you. So that's what we're looking at. We don't see much that has changed our thesis. We're still heavy U.S. names. We're still heavy biotech. We're a little lighter Canada, just because of a few of the valuation disparities that we've talked about in the addressable markets we see. So it's just go along, get along, loose grips on the handlebars today for us.
And are these the kind of days when you advise people just to take a little less emotional look at things, as opposed to, seeing numbers maybe a little softer? The first quarter, as you mentioned, was great for a lot of sectors, cannabis included, especially after the last quarter of 18, which was putrid. Are these the kind of days where you just ask people to just be patient?
I don't ask people to do anything. For us, as we look at some of these names, a lot of our core exposure, we have 3 to 5 year horizons on, and we're less, worried about the news flow on any given day versus the price action. So we try to just trade around our core positions. A lot of our MSOs, a lot of our U.S. names have had great quarters. And certainly some backing and filling makes sense here. So, like I said, we still see the asymmetric opportunities on the horizon across a number of different names, and a lot of mispriced merchandise is a function of sort of the opaque nature of the cannabis market right now in these names, and the lack of Wall Street coverage is really creating some opportunities. So we're looking for those, but certainly as we look at this volatility, it's nothing new to anybody that's in the space for any amount of time.
Well, and the reason I know you're not recommending this, but a lot of the people that are watching the Midas Letter are looking for any clue as to when they should or shouldn't take action. And I guess that's what I was kind of asking, these are the kind of days where maybe you sit on the sideline, you're smiling, you're like, I don't know, Howard, what kind of question is this?
Well, everybody has a unique time horizon and risk profile. So, anybody that's out there saying you should buy this or you should buy that without understanding the time horizon and risk profile of their audience, I think is doing more harm than good.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's great opportunities here across the landscape if you sync your time horizon and your risk profile. Keep some powder. Understand they've just had a monster run, and certainly as we look out, over the next 3 to 5 years, I think there's still a lot of movement left in these names. A lot of onboarding, so to speak, to portfolios as more understanding about cannabis and about the wellness and about the efficacy and about really the use cases, not just about getting high, but I'm talking about the non-euphoric use cases, the industrial use cases, the consumer use cases, and the medical use cases, right? Biopharm. Most people don't even think cannabis biotech is a sector yet. We think it is.
I love that, and it's something that I've thought a lot about and interviewed a lot of people on my other show about. The idea that when legalization was on the horizon, everyone giggled and thought, oh, great, now we can get high. And I was like, well, everyone's already getting high. What I knew, and what you just mentioned, and we're going to get to Walgreens, is I knew that the big push in all of this was when, and what's the phrase you use? Say again?
Non-euphoric.
The non-euphoric use. And I use the example of Shoppers Drug Mart here in Canada, but Walgreens, you're going to tell us that they've just announced, like a lot of where formerly it was a pharmacological play, there's going to be this huge influx of cannabis, nutraceuticals, whatever that sector's called, and you're going to tell us that Walgreens is adopting this model.
Oh, I think everybody's going to adopt this model. Again, denial, migration, panic. I think we're starting to see the migration. Not only on the consumer side, we saw CVS, obviously, in Walgreens now, but I think you're going to see more of an adoption across the financial side. BlackRock, I think it was last week or this week. These weeks are all starting to forge together. But there were words that they've started to take positions in some of these U.S. operators. So if that's the case, I think we're much closer to the migration than we thought we were. But that's going to happen. Banking reform is being debated right now as we're taping this. We don't necessarily expect any surprises, but certainly this is going to be a process. It's going to take time. I think if you have the right time horizon and the right risk profile and the right approach to this, you look at days like this, you look at the delays like we saw in New Jersey and maybe New York as opportunities, right? I mean, the longer that this drags out, the more pressure is going to be on these names. But if you believe that this is going to change and this is going to go through a clinical pathway and this is going to go through a regulatory pathway in banking and the clinical trials and all told, this is going to be adopted by society, then again, the best days are in front of us, right? I mean, we anticipate there is going to be a large amount of cannabis hedge funds, a large amount of cannabis ETFs, a large amount of cannabis, products out there, and they all have to buy these stocks. So we're getting in front of that. We don't, claim to know when that's going to happen, but we do think it's going to be over the next 12 to 18 months.
But if you think about the growth opportunities in terms of just cannabis as an item, it isn't just, as we said, it's not about getting high and giggling. There's this whole, non-psychotropic therapeutic use. But it's a lot of people, when they first heard about legalization, equated it to alcohol. And the mistake in equating it to alcohol is they don't serve alcohol as a therapy in Walgreens or CVS or Shoppers Drug Mart. So there's this whole huge therapeutic CBD as a, whether it's fighting anxiety, migraines, or Parkinson's, there's all this stuff, and what you said there about all the various steps to make it, I don't even know if the word is the legitimization and the corporate legitimization of cannabis as a product. And that's kind of what I think is interesting, not only as an investment, but as a consumer.
Well, you touched on 2 points. Number one, CBD is all the rage right now, but it's also important to remember that's one cannabinoid, right? THC is another cannabinoid. CBN for sleep, another cannabinoid. CBG, there's hundreds, right? And so that story still needs to be told in the marketplace. But, you talked about cannabis as a product. I humbly disagree. We look at cannabis and hemp as ingredients, right? And those are ingredients that are going to go into everything from cosmetics and vanity to industrial use cases like hempcrete and animal feed to medicine, right? And if you understand the science, and that's where we really try to focus our energies, because we follow the science. And the science is telling us that cannabinoid wellness is a viable alternative across a range of indications, as we say, an efficacious agility, right? And this is impact investing. This is going to help ease suffering, and the side effect profiles de minimis compared to what big pharma is peddling out there. So this is, we're on the right side of history here. It's bumpy for sure, but the frontier usually is. But again, and this is the first time we're talking, but we've talked on this show a lot about how this is, this is a 30,000-year conversation. Cannabis has a relationship with humanity across cultures, across different, continents. It's all through the lens of health and wellness. In the last 90 years, some politicians have decided that this is a gateway drug and that this is terrible for society, and the facts just aren't there, right? And there's people out there still trying to peddle this story that this is this and this is that, but follow the science. It's going to take us to where we think is going to be a secular bull market that's just taking shape as we speak.
Just a couple things before we let you go. I know that Cronos Group was downgraded by Canaccord Genuity from hold to sell, and why?
Well, I mean, their valuation to their assets is just, we wrote about this on Twitter 2 days ago, it's just not there. I mean, they have a great biosynthetic arm. They have obviously Philip Morris or Altria, Mo behind them. But at the end of the day, you need to have a footprint. You need to have some sort of metric. And because that's listed on the NASDAQ, similar to Tilray, and even some would say Canopy, it's become a beacon for institutional investors who need to check a box that the first thing they check is a liquidity box, right? So it's a self-fulfilling migration. As people want cannabis exposure, they've reached for Cronos, they've reached for Tilray and Canopy. But as more names come on, CanTrust is a name we own. They report tomorrow. As more names come on, NASDAQ Village Farms, another one. I think investors are going to do the work. Analysts are going to do the work, and they're going to see better relative values, mispriced merchandise, inefficiencies in the market that are going to be solved for when Wall Street adopts this writ large. So there's still those opportunities, but again, you got to do the work, and I think Cronos is just there's no there from a valuation standpoint that you could point to, other than the fact that they've got a great investor in their back pocket.
Well, I think it's interesting, and I'm glad we had this conversation. It was great to talk to you about it, because I am fascinated from just a guy in the street basis in terms of where the growth in cannabis is. And I don't think the average person yet, especially in Canada, has delved into the variations and machinations of this industry beyond a psychotropic get high and watch Netflix. And as you say, there's so many. I wrote this down. Efficacious agility. Is that right? I love that.
Yeah, we think so. And we think the science is going to prove that through. And I'm not talking about pain, appetite, nausea, anxiety, and stress, right? You already have an FDA-approved medicine for epilepsy, for childhood onset of epilepsy. We're real keen on this brain cancer trial that GW has. We've been talking about it for a long time. But if you understand the science and the role of the endocannabinoid system in regulating neurotransmissions, and how ubiquitous of a network of receptors the endocannabinoid system is, and the ability to use that network as a retrograde pathway to wellness and be able to target receptors with specific cannabinoids, it's fascinating, right? And that's the part of the story that gets us excited, because nobody really knows it. There's a handful of people in the world who really get it, but that's going to change. And we're seeing, Oxford University last year launched a curriculum, and they're popping up. So, this is happening right now as we speak.
Well, absolutely. There's at that level, but at several levels below that, there are people, whether it's Oxford or other huge institutions are starting to gather information in a way that wasn't available before, because now it's kind of out of the closet in terms of people sharing their use of cannabis. And now we're going to find out the many, many ways we don't even consider yet or haven't considered that it will help us. Again, beyond just as now it's legal, we can buy it without worrying about going to jail. Todd Harrison, what a fascinating character you are. We started with the book, and now we're buddies. Thank you very much from the founder. He's a founding partner of CB1 Capital Management. Todd, thanks for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Yep, thank you. Thank you. Have a good day.
Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Make sure you never miss a show by subscribing to our YouTube channel and clicking on the little notifications bell. If you're interested in getting monthly actionable investment ideas in the cannabis space to your inbox, subscribe to the newsletter at MidasLetter.com.
Yeah, there you go. Welcome back. Thanks very much to Todd. Very interesting for me. Now, there's some discussion in the studio here of whether myself should acknowledge some of the comments. And I just want to say to some of the people commenting, hey, I get it. Like, this is my favorite comment today so far. Todd, like many of us, is quickly annoyed by Howard's lack of investment and knowledge. And I assure you, so am I. Anyway, I'm happy to be sitting in. I don't profess to know much about investing, but I do know a lot about weed. A lot of research, a lifetime of research. But I appreciate the comments, and to be honest with you, I can't be anything but what I am, which is a guy that's interested in this. And I will say this: there's lots of great information being exchanged amongst you investment nerds. And I'm learning a lot from reading them as well. And I have some questions I'm going to ask you guys later, and maybe I'll invest on some of your recommendations. So, up next, I think you're going to find this fascinating. The CEO of CEL-SCI Corporation will be joining us live in the studio.
CEL-SCI Corporation is a biotechnology company involved in the research and development of immunotherapy products for the treatment of cancer, autoimmune, and infectious diseases. The company's core capabilities include drug discovery, research, development, and manufacturing of complex biological substances. CEL-SCI believes that boosting a patient's immune system while it is still intact could provide the greatest possible impact on survival. The company has operations in Vienna, Virginia, and Baltimore, Maryland. CEL-SCI Corporation trades on the New York Stock Exchange under the symbol CVM.
That's funny. Apparently, everyone in the control room, did you like that when I was talking about my experience? Listen, my friends, you may have the edge on the investment, but there's nothing you can tell me about weed that I don't know, because I'm old. Hey, this is exciting. We're going to switch gears a little bit. I'm fascinated to meet our guest. He is from, what doesn't even, CEL-SCI, Geert Kersten from CEL-SCI Corporation.
Correct.
What a pleasure, sir.
And you did a good job. You pronounced my name and the company name correctly.
But I don't have on this piece of paper, are you the CEO of this company?
I am, yes.
Excellent. Well, there you go. Now, let's talk about boosting patients' immune systems, because I think that's a very interesting topic, and it's what you guys have been involved in, and we'll talk about why that's so important to people.
What's actually really interesting is you don't need to boost the immune system as long as you catch it before surgery, radiation, chemo. The reason people die from cancer is because the immune system cannot see the tumor. So you don't need more police in Toronto. You need better intel for the police. What does the terrorist look like? Where is the terrorist to be found? And all that stuff. Our drug is the intel. And we apply our immune system drug right after diagnosis of your cancer, but before the immune system is destroyed by
Before
surgery.
it's compromised.
Exactly.
Right.
That's the key. The power of your immune system is incredible. So for example, I don't think this has ever been seen. When we give our drug, we can only give it for 3 weeks because we're not allowed to delay this first surgery. That might be harmful. So in these 3 weeks, though, we have 10% of people who have 0 cancer cells left, 0.
Amazing.
And the other ones have 50% less cancer cells. I don't think that's ever been seen. It's not our drug. It is your immune system.
Right.
We've removed the shackles on the immune system.
Let's talk a little, let's back up. CEL-SCI Corporation, Geert Kersten is here. Let's talk a little bit about how the body attacks and how it reacts. I know from past life that a lot of times people who have inflammation in their body, part of the problem with things like tendinitis and those type of things is the body can't heal itself because scar tissue needs to be removed, and that's why a lot of those things go, chronic pain lasts a long time. So this is sort of a similar thing where you're using the body's natural immunology to fight these cells, and that's why it's so exciting.
Yes. You have the power. I have the power.
I have no power here.
You're alive. That's
Yes,
your
I
power,
am.
right?
Yes.
There are plenty of people who are much more screwed up than us, okay?
I don't know about that. but we'll go along with it, sure.
But why medicine?
Yes.
The greatest medicine is your own immune system.
Yes.
So this is not some holistic vitamin, whatever. Mm-hmm. But we're freeing up your immune system to see the tumor while it's healthy. It can do what it's designed to do. How else do you eliminate billions of cancer cells in 3 weeks? And this is not some hocus pocus. This was published in the Journal of Clinical Oncology, presented at ASCO.
I want to talk about some of the, because it's cancer immunotherapies is what we're talking about. And as you mentioned, they're administered only after conventional therapies have been tried. What is this multikine? Is that how I'm pronouncing it?
Yes.
Multikine. Explain that.
You make cytokines, interleukins, interferons, and growth factors.
Okay.
Which by themselves are multi-billion-dollar products. But you don't make one, you make all of them. It's like a football team they work together. They regulate your immune system. We make a copy of that and we give it to cancer patients. And by the way, surprise, surprise, when you take something natural, it's not toxic.
And it says you've received orphan drug designation from the FDA for the neoadjuvant therapy in patients with squamous cell carcinoma. Now, this has got to be amazing news for people who are suffering.
Actually, as a matter of fact, I met 2 people today who have had head and neck cancer. And yes, they actually think so.
Yeah.
The last approval in our indication, which is advanced, meaning stages 3 and 4, primary, not yet treated head and neck cancer, was 60 years ago by the FDA. And the Canadian regulators haven't approved anything either, from what I know. 60 years ago, that's how much advance we've had. Every other patient will die within 3 years, even though we give them everything we have, surgery, radiation, and chemo. What if we can now add the immune system to it in a non-toxic manner and suddenly have 60, 70%, right? Success rate.
And not to be flip, when you hear these tropes, cancer can be beaten, but this is what we're talking about. These are the developments that are going to help us beat more and more types of cancer. And you are specific to head and neck cancer in this.
Only initially.
Yeah, only initially. Not to be crass, How does this affect your company? It's got to be amazing news.
Let me put it this way. We were the first in the world to focus on the immune system. Some other ones around the same time did too. They all went out of business because until 5 years ago, people thought the immune system could not be used to fight cancer. Now everybody thinks it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. We have, however, done a quantum leap. All of the other drugs are used after you've failed surgery, radiation, chemo. What's left of your immune system?
So this is before you are compromised.
Exactly.
And once again, to say what you said at the beginning, it's in that period prior to surgery when your immune system still has not been compromised.
Exactly.
Prior to radiation, prior to all these things, that as you say, you know, if most drugs are a drug of last resort, then you are, by the time you get to the last resort, you're in no shape to fight anything.
You look at the successes in the space after surgery, radiation, chemo. You extend life by a few months.
Wow.
Our goal is to help you eliminate the tumor. If it doesn't come back, you lead a normal life.
Amazing.
And by the way, it's the most cost-effective way of treating also. Because right up front, I fix it. I take care of it.
Right. And it's a chain reaction of modalities that you will need less and less of as time goes on.
That's exactly right.
Geert Kersten, I got to tell you, it's interesting stuff. And I will say this: you're the first person named Geert I've ever spoke to.
Not many of us.
No, and I'll tell you what, there's very few Howards. Not a lot of Howards.
But I want to add one more thing.
Yes, anything.
We're at the end of our final phase 3 study. It's been an 8-year clinical trial, the largest,
ridiculous,
as far as we know, in head and neck cancer ever. 928 patients. And we've been waiting for over 2.5 years for the endpoint. And this sounds terrible, but we have to wait for 298 people to die in the two main groups. And we just had to extend the contracts with the people running the study because we had expected them to have died already. So we're hopeful that the fact that they haven't died yet confirms the good results from our phase 2 study.
Well, I know it sounds terrible, but in the development of miracle drugs, in the development of any drug, there is a cost financially, and there's a cost to people and patients. One of the other things that I think we should mention, the company's LEAPS technology, currently being developed as a therapeutic vaccine for a lot of things. A lot of people in Canada, a lot of people watching, suffering from rheumatoid arthritis, and you have some news for them as well.
Well, the very nice thing is we are trying to reprogram the immune system that went bad. If you get rheumatoid arthritis, your immune system goes bad and attacks your own joints.
It's a horrible, horrible thing.
So right now, most of the drugs basically seek to reduce the inflammation.
Right.
We're trying to change the underlying reason for the disease. We're trying to change, and in animal models we've successfully done so, we're trying to reprogram the immune system back to where it should be, then it will no longer attack your own joints, and you don't have to worry about the inflammation.
Well, it is. It's great stuff. We thank you for coming in. Geert Kersten, the CEO of CEL-SCI Corporation. Any final thoughts? Any final things you'd like our audience to know?
It's a long journey. It always is. There are no shortcuts. In the end, data speaks for itself. Once the data is out, we will be measured by only that one thing. And I think we're right. That's the bottom line.
CEL-SCI Corp on the stock exchange, new on the NYSE, is CVM, if that's of interest to you. Thank you for coming in, sir. Really
Thank you so much,
it.
Howard.
What a pleasure. There's Geert Kersten. Lots of financials being released over the next few weeks, and we'll take a look and a lick in a second.
Here are some upcoming events in the cannabis space. CanTrust are releasing their Q4 financials on March 28th with a conference call at 8 a.m. that morning. Oxley are releasing their Q4 financials on March 29th. Ianthus are releasing their Q4 financials on April 1st with a conference call at 8:30 a.m. on April 2nd. MediPharm Labs Corp announced that it will release its fourth quarter results before markets open on April 3rd. Green Industries are releasing their Q4 financials on April 9th with a conference call at 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern. And TerraSend are releasing their Q4 financials on April 30th.
If you're enjoying the show, subscribe to Midas Letter on YouTube so you stay up to date on everything investment.
Well, the markets, as you know better than I do, for sure, the markets have been pretty logy. Is that the word? Pokey? They've been
sluggish
shit,
and,
sluggish. But here's Ed. Markets just shut down.
We're going to talk about a couple things today.
Yeah, we're going to get, by the way, before the show's over, it's like 24 minutes or so, we're going to talk to Ed. Then Ben is going to come in. We got a bunch of stuff for Ben. And hopefully there's some information you can use. Can you just talk a little bit before you go to the charts?
Yeah.
Because Todd spoke about it. I think there's a vibe, general vibe, that markets have been a bit tepid.
They've hit a wall. They've hit a wall, and
Yep.
I can illustrate that.
Let's have a look.
I'm gonna. I just
look at the wall.
Big of a problem.
Show
right
me
now.
the wall.
I'd like to sort of, what's the song about the wall? There was
Another brick in the wall? That's the one you're talking about, Ed?
I don't know.
We don't need
Yeah,
no...
that's it. That's the one.
That one? It's called A Brick in the Wall.
Come on.
Pink Floyd.
That's the one. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm unfortunately I've had to sort of reboot my thing, but that's okay.
That's fine.
It's about to do it. So let's just look at the S&P.
Yeah, let's have a look. And we can put this up on the screen for you guys.
we're gonna put it on it. We're gonna
throw
do that
a chart
here.
up. And we're getting the chart up.
We
Just-
want to. Come on.
It's
Alerts
coming.
Loaded. Come
Oh,
on.
hang on a second. Big chart's coming.
What? It's just loading. It's this. I know.
It's loading. It's
Yeah. So if you look at the last month or so in the
yes.
markets,
Let's look at it.
we're going to look at it once it's loaded. Until it's loaded.
I think you're loaded.
I'm loaded.
I think Ed's loaded.
I'm loaded.
Ed's just there was about during one of the interviews. Ed goes, "I got an emergency," and then he went over to Mikado and he got hammered. Thanks, Geert. Yeah, Mikado. All the boys love Mikado.
Okay, so why isn't this coming up?
No one knows.
Okay, here we go.
Here
we
comes
go.
the chart.
Okay, so look at.
Countdown.
Here we go.
Here we go.
SPX and
Can't see the chart.
what's going on here? What's going on?
I got some charts.
Okay, here we go. Wax on, wax off.
Don't see anything. Not seeing any charts.
But let's do it.
Are you on the GFN
Yes,
network?
I am. Yes, I am. Are you?
I'm on the GFY network.
Launching Quote Street.
That's the
Come on.
Go Fark Yourself network.
What's going
Ed's
on?
got no charts.
I got it. Come on, guys. I got my charts.
Connor. Here comes Connor.
Here he comes.
Look at him. Let's take a shot at Connor. Connor's doing something. There he is.
So you're in the GFN
This is
network.
this is great. This is like every young guy
You tell me what
helping
network
every
you're
old
on.
guy, helping every old guy find something on the internet. Ask the young guy where the porn's at. He knows.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell him what he used to do.
What did you used to do?
I have no comment on that.
Did you work for Pornhub?
Yeah, he did.
Did you work for
I did not
Pornhub?
work for Pornhub.
But-
No.
I tell you what, we should have a
should've.
contest. We should have a contest. Let's look at Ed's recommended for you on Pornhub. That's what I want to see.
Recommended for you.
That's what I want.
You don't want to see
Yes,
it.
you do.
Yes, you do.
You open it up and
It's
it's just like
pretty
a
good.
girl, it's a
Yeah.
donkey next to a chicken in yoga pants.
Yoga pants.
Yeah. It's a donkey wearing yoga
Okay.
pants.
We there?
That's what Ed's.
Are we
Can
there?
we see it now?
No active session.
Okay, it's already tomorrow. The markets are opening.
Do we got an active session here or what? Oh, fuck. You know what? Well, let's talk about the market. We
Well,
don't.
just tell us. Hey, this chart thing doesn't seem to be working.
Jesus.
We've only got 20 minutes left in the show.
I think it's time for a joke.
You want a joke?
Joke's on me.
Want a joke?
I can't. Yeah, tell me a joke.
I only know 2 jokes, 3 jokes. But you got to pay attention.
Okay.
Okay, are we going to do it? Okay, here comes the porn
Okay,
guy again.
Here comes. Whoa, that's nice. I like that action.
Okay, you ready? Here's a joke. This is a simple joke you can remember.
Okay.
All right? Woman goes to the doctor. Says, "Doctor, I don't know if my husband has Alzheimer's or AIDS." And the doctor said, "Well, drive him to the edge of town. If he finds his way home, don't fuck him."
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Yeah. Jesus. Jesus. Okay.
Have we got a chart yet?
Okay,
here comes the chart.
Okay, here we go.
All right.
SPX.
SPX. Let's do it up. Here comes Ed with the
We
chart.
got it now. We got it. Okay, put it up. Put it up, folks. Let's go.
Let's go. Oh!
Okay. So we're going to put up a 6-month chart, which shows you all the action from when the market peaked, and the market peaked almost 6 months ago. Believe it or not,
Really?
it was October, early October.
What month?
October. Yeah. And here's where it peaked.
Show me.
Right there.
Right there.
And then it dropped precipitously.
Yes, sir.
And bottomed the day before Christmas.
A lot of red candles.
Okay, look at that. Look at that. That was one of the steepest declines of all time. Since then, we've moved up, and look at that trend.
Yep.
But then it deviates a little bit like this.
Yes.
In other words, it's rounding out, right? Like an ocean liner turn.
Yep.
It doesn't turn like that. It.
Hey, did you see that video from that shit show in Norway? They were trying to get those people off the boat. That was unbelievable. Do you see those people sitting on the deck as it was going back and forth? It just goes to show you, when those things lose engine power, Mother Nature can kick your ass.
Well, but Mother Nature is.
Yeah. Amazing.
Did you see that thing moving around?
Yeah, but that's because they didn't just lose the engine. They also lose the, whatever that is, the ballast, whatever that keeps it level.
Okay.
Shit show. Anyway,
Yeah.
back to these candles.
So we've seen here a period now where the market, and the question I have, and I'm not looking for an answer, but is this thing rolling? In other words, are we going to be here in a month from now, and I'm going to be drawing lines like this?
Yeah. Well, you tell me.
And if it rolls like that, that could be the beginning of a new trend of the kind we don't want, which is lower. Anyway,
Let me ask you a stupid question.
okay.
Again, on behalf of me being
No
an idiot.
stupid questions,
No,
only
this is
stupid answers.
No, okay. When markets contract, let's use that word,
Yeah.
is that not an opportunity?
Yeah, no, of course, but.
And I don't mean to be crass, but when Boeing,
Yeah.
when the 737
Yeah.
second crash happened,
Yeah.
that stock dropped like a rock. Mm-hmm. And I have a 21-year-old daughter who has never asked me an investment question in her life, called me up and said, "What do you think about Boeing?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Well, wouldn't the stock go down?" I'm like, "Who are you? Who's
Yeah.
on?" So
Yeah.
if my kid,
Yeah.
who's in arts,
Yeah.
figured that out, didn't a bunch of other people? Don't people look at opportunities like this and say,
Well, we can look at Boeing. We can take a look at it right now.
no, I'm just saying in general.
Look.
When markets start to contract, isn't that an opportunity for these nerds to invest?
Yeah. Except like if it's obvious to a layperson, and I'm not suggesting, then it's probably too late.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
The markets work pretty fast.
Well, I don't know.
And if you know it, chances are everybody knows
Believe
it.
me, if my kids thought about it,
Yeah.
somebody else did.
But let's take a look at some of the big marijuana
Let's do
companies.
that. Let's
because
look at
this
some
is
of
a
the big
show where-
ones.
I'm going to
Exactly.
put up weed today.
Put up some weed.
Weed.
Let's
is
talk about the
Canopy Growth.
Canopy Growth.
Right? WEED.
Let's have a look.
WEED hyphen CA. We're going to look at weed. We're going to look at. Okay, so here we go. So I pointed this out the other day. This company, okay, there's a very, very. I'm going to try to look at. You see that? That's sort of connecting the recent highs over the last this year, so since about January, and it's slightly descending. And the other hand, you've got this bottom here, slightly ascending. However, in the last 3 days, it's broken that. You see this in here?
Yes.
It's rolling over. Okay, so that's one example. That's the biggest weed company in the world, right there.
Wow.
Okay, so what has it done in the last 3 months, 2 months? Not much, but it does now seem to be losing a bit of steam. Volumes seem to be steady, except slight decline. Okay, let's look at another big one here. Let's look at Tilray. Tilray, which is a big U.S. one, trades in the New York Stock Exchange. TLRY.
You ain't got no alibi.
And I'm going to put up a one-year chart because the one-year chart shows this unbelievable exponential move, which
And
exponential moves, by the way, are usually the last move.
Yeah, where was that peak? Was that Christmas too? Put
no,
that back up.
That was.
Yeah, where is that peaking?
The end of September.
Wow. So just prior to the October
Legalization.
peak. Yeah.
Yeah.
People
just
freaked
prior,
out.
But look how it starts. Very innocuous, and then this is an exponential move.
Yeah.
I think in mathematics they call it asymptote or
To what, Ed?
asymptote. It's a mathematical word.
Asymptote.
ASYMPTOTE or something like that.
AST.
But don't quote me. Anyway,
That's different than ATM.
So once that happens, and the move here from here to here was a double.
Wow.
In other words, in 1 or 2 days, it went from 150 to 300 back to 150.
Wow.
And then this, and now look, it's actually losing ground here. It's now, and I think I'm going to.
It looks like it's half the value it was when it peaked.
It's less than half. It's a quarter.
Come on, Ed.
It's $70. The peak was 300. Duh.
Okay.
Okay, so now
And,
here we go. Here we go.
one last chart before we get to our
Okay,
our
what do you want?
superstar.
Okay, we can.
Well, you had three of
Cronos.
them.
Let's
talk about Cronos. Exactly.
Cronos came up with some results.
Yes.
And Cronos had one of the big tobacco companies put big dough in it, right?
Yes.
Right? Why would they do that?
I don't know.
Why would they do that? Well,
'Cause tobacco's-
tobacco, marijuana, all tied together. CRON-CA. Let's just see what this baby's done, okay? Here we go. And look at this. So this is when the company, when the money went into the company. Okay, so this is when the rumor was. This is when the actual deal actually closed. You were around when the deal closed. Remember, we were saying how the deal closed.
Okay.
And they actually got the deal. And since then, it's been doing nothing but dropping.
Ridiculous.
Buy on rumor, sell on news.
That was it. Buy on rumor,
Sell
on news.
Look at this. Look at this.
I was trying to remember that. You taught me so well,
So look
Mr.
at-
Mugiyagi.
look at-
Muyagi.
Yeah. I'll tell you. And now today we're down here a couple bucks. I think that the thing dropped. It dropped quite a bit, but big market cap again. So we've had look at three things. We looked at weed, we looked at Tilray, and we looked at Cronos. They're all lower today.
You know what? Let's talk to Benny. He's the lead financial writer. Ben. Hey, Ben. Welcome, my friend. How you been?
I've been well. How have you been, guys?
Fantastic.
Benny and the Jets.
Benny and the Jets. Listen, the Ed man there was just talking about Cronos and a group downgrade by Canaccord Genuity.
That's it.
Thank you. What do you have to say about that? Because it's a topic, we've been mentioning it. What do you think it's all? Where are you landing on this?
Yeah, I think it's a significant moment in the market today. It obviously played a big factor in the declines that we saw. And I consider this sort of a straw that breaks the camel's back sort of situation. Because if you backtrack over the last 10 or 12 sessions previously, the market hadn't been really doing that much better than the broad market, than the S&P 500, than the NASDAQ 100. So it had kind of been treading water. So I don't think the marijuana space, the Canadian marijuana space that is, not the US, it's a little bit stronger, but the Canadian marijuana space hadn't actually been that strong. It was sort of treading along, following the market, mirroring the market when the market had that broad melt up that's been lasting since the start of the year. So in the last couple of days, we've seen, the market weakness really kick in. We saw the market sell off this morning, and I think Cronos was that straw that breaks the camel's back, because what it did is it essentially, when you have sell-side analysts basically coming out and saying that the valuations are too frothy, and this wasn't the first one. We've had 3 or 4 other sell-side analysts, downgrade stocks based on valuation. Tilray, Cronos last week or the week before that, and Hexo recently. When the sell-side analysts are doing that, then the market just, it released, and you saw a big sell-off in the morning. A lot of stocks like Canopy Growth, Aurora Cannabis, Afria, they all sort of took a hit because these downgrades based on valuation don't support multiple expansion in the sector. So I think that in combination with the market selling off really produced quite a punch this morning.
And this sort of goes to your point, which was going to be my first question about the HMMJ. It has broken below some key support.
Yeah, it did, and that just goes to what I was saying, that the market was sort of treading water.
Right.
Actually, not a lot of big moves in the big names, tier one space, or the mid majors. It's been sort of cresting along with the market, sort of kind of following it, not really much action. And then when we had that break today, in combination with the Cronos news, that was the cue for traders to sell off. And the market, the cannabis space is obviously more volatile than the general market in general. So when you had that downside action with Cronos, you saw it release 3 or 4 times the strength of the broad market sell-off. So that was the cue for traders, I think, after not really sort of treading water over the past 2-3 weeks, to really sell some positions. And some technical damage was created on HMMJ a little bit.
In your note to me, you mentioned short-term treasuries and the 10-year bond inverting, talking about a recession perhaps. Ed mentioned something earlier in the show about
the German 10-year went negative this week.
That went negative. There's so much debt out there, and Ed just informed me not an hour ago that a lot of the world's debt is actually losing money. 10 trillion of the 25 trillion is getting negative returns. Is that why you're using that word, the recession? Sir?
Yeah, well, the inversion of the yield curve has traditionally been one of the strongest indicators of recession. Now, it doesn't always mean it's the case when some of the shorter maturing debt inverts, like we've seen here, short-term 3-month treasuries, I think, in the 10-year. So we're not quite there on 2s and 10s yet, but we're getting pretty close. And it's a very reliable signal that recession is on its way. When people start taking negative returns and less than the price of inflation, there's a lot of fear out there that people don't want to be in risk assets. They're worried about a recession, and then the recession and negative earnings sort of hitting stocks. So it's a very reliable indicator, and you see more debt around the world kind of going this way. New Zealand, during their central bank meetings, they mentioned that there are downside risks to the macro picture globally right now. So there's no question about it. Growth is slowing throughout the world. It's just a question of, will technical recession happen in 2020 in the States, or, timelines are a little bit dicey.
Well, Ed's here, and I like having Ed as something in terms of your experience, and you can talk a little bit about what Benny's mentioning there.
Sure.
In terms of, I just want to know, so somebody hears this news, whether it's the cannabis space investment or just in general, especially men and women our age or in their 50s and 60s. What do you do when you hear news like this? Do you throw your stuff in cash, as I mentioned to you last time, or do you?
When longer term rates, and we're talking, Ben and I are saying, one of the best indicators things are a little, there's clouds out there, is when longer term rates are shorter than short term rates, inverted yield.
Right.
So you go out 10 years, you get less than if you just kept your money short term.
Right.
That creates a lot of havoc for bankers, capital markets people. That's just not the way it should be. And I think, and maybe Ben, you might not agree with me, but I think they've printed so much money, and remember, so much debt, but the money's out there against it. Someone's got the money. And so, you create a debt, someone's got the money. So there's so much money looking for yield, it almost acts like a weight.
It weighs it down.
So you can't get yield because there's so much of it. You want to give me 5%? Okay, well, here, I got $1 billion. Well, wait a minute, you're going to give me 6? I got another 10 billion. And I got $1 trillion. There's so much money out there.
What do you think?
Yeah, there's no question. All this debt is really, we don't really have, in my opinion, a true form of capitalism as we've known it, say, 30 or 40 years ago. With all this central bank intervention, it's creating a lot of havoc. So, they tried to, I think the Fed and central banks, so, mainly the Fed, they saw that, I don't know if you remember that what the retail sales number in December was, in January. after the big sell-off from October to December, those numbers were really weak, down something like 3 or 4%, I think, some big negative number. And I think the Fed, saw that what happens when the stock market goes down and how it affects consumer spending, right? So they're trying everything they can to forestall a recession, to keep growth going. Of course, Trump has he's trying to win re-election. And if you take out the economy, if you blow up that, then he doesn't have too much to stand on, or that's a main pillar for him to stand on. So there's a lot of vested interest to keep the economy going. So, it's sort of the bull market cycle taking its natural effect versus all this intervention coming from everywhere else, central banks, and it's creating this very big, toxic soup. I don't know if that's too strong a word, but
I think toxic
there's a lot of.
I think toxic soup.
Yeah, you don't want to go to a restaurant and order toxic soup.
I think you should get a T-shirt that says "Ben says toxic soup." Quickly before you go, Heritage Cannabis making a new multi-month high. Cannabis extractors remain strong. Is there any good news for anybody, sir?
Yeah, I think there's some good news. I think Heritage Cannabis, it did sell off. It actually finished down 2 cents today to 58 cents, I believe, but it touched 67 cents, and that was a multi-month high. And some of the extractors like MediPharm Labs, Valens Grow Works, they have been pretty strong lately as well. So I don't know. I think it's too early to call a trend to see if it's, to see if, they're going to outperform the market, but they've been among the strongest of the Canadian LPs, the extractor space. So it's something to keep an eye on. And they may not be as fully valued as maybe some of the LPs and Cronos trading at 9 times earnings. So it's something that we're going to, keep an eye on, and perhaps there'll be an article or two out in the next, couple weeks on that.
Fantastic. One last quick thought from Ed.
Just on the CANN, is that the reason why it's getting so much attention? The thing trades 5-10 million shares every day, and it wasn't long ago it was 18 cents, and it hit 68 cents today. That's mind-boggling move. Although it did back off, it was a bit of a reversal. So I wouldn't want to probably step in tomorrow unless it dropped another 7 or 8 cents. But it's been a stellar performer.
Yeah, it's been great. Clint Sharples is a regular guest on the show. He made his case, and I think a lot of people bought into it. And they've had a lot of good news cycle action with getting their extractor license recently, and they have a whole bunch of hemp that they're waiting to process, which should generate 30-40 million in sales. But I think overall too that there's a big opportunity for an extractor to step into the Canadian space, because a lot of oils are in demand and they're pretty scarce out there. So they're just taking advantage of that opportunity, and we'll see if they can keep the momentum going. But it's definitely been a big move.
Always a pleasure for me, for sure, the Midas Letter financial writer, Benjamin A. Smith, and I hope we get a chance to talk tomorrow. Thanks for the help before the show and during the show, sir.
All right. See you tomorrow, guys.
All right.
Thanks, Ben. Nice seeing you.
While we're talking about tomorrow, let's take a look and see who is with us on the Thursday show. There you go. Dave Berg, Strain Print Technologies, company I'm familiar with. Ben will be back. Steve Meisner, capital markets analyst. And of course, as always, we will look at some of your questions if you have any for us or for Ed. As always, thanks, Weed Nerds. Appreciate it, Ed.
Yeah.
Well, now you're going right from here to the
No.
to like a speakeasy or a booze can.
Oh, I thought you said right to the train station. No, probably going to the booze can.
Go to the booze. Go to booze. All right.
Okay.
And thanks to Connor Donnell and who's the other one? Simon.
And Ricky.
Ricky, I love the fact that
And
Ricky,
Howard.
I love the fact that Ricky, I have to leave early today. I'm like, oh, really? Very, very professional.
Yeah.
We'll see you all tomorrow. Take care.